Oh, this is the Armchair Commentator. This is the first episode of Armchair Commentation. Every day here lately, when I turn on the news, I see things about protest in various cities, and I think in Democratic controlled liberal bastions of craziness. It is getting worse. And where I live, there's nothing like this going on, and nothing, no protest like that of any kind. In fact, I haven't seen people protesting it, in favor of liberty very much. I'm sure they're doing it, but I just haven't seen much of it in this area. That doesn't mean people are concerned with it, and that doesn't mean people aren't aware of it. Because where I live, they are. But the news media would have you think that this country is in the midst of one big revolution that's going to turn it into a communist state, which is not true. I say not true. It's not true unless people get off their duff and do something. That means get out. Not just get out to vote, but go and talk to people about voting for President Trump. Let me get the camera here. We can see it. See the hat right there where it says Trump 2020. If Joe Biden gets elected, things will change big time. Some things quickly, other things over time, but we will turn into a communist socialist country if Joe Biden gets elected. So it's important for people to get out and do something to make sure President Trump gets elected. And don't be afraid to speak your mind. Now, I admit I wouldn't get in one of these protests, with Black Lives Matter, which is not really Black Lives Matter. It's a communist socialist organization. And their manifesto even tells you that. They're all about LBGDT or whatever that is, and anything and everything other than Black Lives. The name will make you think that organization is catering to Black lives and that they matter. It's just one big lie. But if you look into it below the surface, you'll see that. Now, I want to read a poem to you today. It's called a political poem. I thought was really good. In the early 1930s Russia, the Kulaks were the enemy of the state. Now, the Kulaks were the peasants who owned little land, less than 8 acres in Russia. And what were their crimes? Having an extra cow, owning any kind of machine with a motor that helped them work faster, hiring someone to work on their farm, and trying to sell an extra grain that they had harvested, or not showing enough signs of starvation, because that meant they were hiding food. And what would happen if one of these privileged peasants got caught? Well, their homes would be pillaged and rummaged. Not that it mattered, because they would never live there again anyway. Among the more fortunate rewards for this insubordination in Russia was to board a one-way cruise to a labor camp in Siberia, a gulag. And if those travel plans didn't work out, the consolation prize was a beating, a rape, and a shovel to dig their own grave. That's in Russia in the 1930s. The mainstream news continuously abused the kulaks. That's like it is today, with white people or other people that believe in free enterprise, and they're continuously abused. We're the modern day kulaks, accusing them in Russia, accusing them of all over the countries, accusing them of all of the country's economic troubles. If you listen close, you can still hear the echoes. What's the crimes of the modern day kulak? Having an extra computer, owning any kind of machine with a motor that helps you get to work faster, like an SUV or something. Hiring someone to work for your company, trying to sell any extra goods that you produce, or not showing enough signs of dependence on the state, the government, because that means you're hiding self-sufficiency. And the Democrats, they don't want you to be self-sufficient. They want you to depend on the state totally. And when they come, they'll tell you they're trying to solve a wealth deficiency, that they're freeing people from poverty, but they'll only ever free people from poverty. It's not the free stuff, it's no stuff. Because anything that you might think is yours, it's only yours until someone that ranks above you shows up at your door and implores you that it's not yours. It doesn't stop with the rich or the middle class or the poor. It doesn't stop with your property or your children or the thoughts you see. No amount of socialist distancing can hide you from this kind of virus. The welfare of humanity is always the alibi of tyrants, and it certainly is the Democrats, liberal Democrats, communist Democrats. When they come, they'll offer you a Green New Deal. But the old Red Deal had guaranteed government jobs also. They were called gulags. That was prisons in Russia. You do not want to start the utopia machine. No regime with collectivist intentions has ever been given an inch and not taken a mile. Because at the heart of every socialist scheme, democratic scheme, is a communist manifesto, and that's certainly true of Black Lives Matter. Go to their website and read the fine print and find out what they're about, if they haven't changed it and hidden it lately. The problem is not the execution. It's the delusionment of any system that disincentivizes work, cancels charity, annihilates ambition, overthrows ownership, and completely misdiagnoses the human condition. It could never work. It cuts to the very soul of the human plight, because freedom is the first fundamental human right. It's why no one was ever shot trying to get into East Germany or North Korea, the communist state. But what say ye in the struggle? What about inequality? There's a big difference between humanitarian work and forced work for the good of humanity. One produces good humans, the other reduces humans to goods. Ain't that the truth? We are absolutely answerable to the call of compassion, but forced compassion is not compassion. It's just stealing. And listen, we can agree that capitalism and communism both have extreme greed, but only one has extreme generosity, and the other one has firing squads. That's for sure. The communists do. They'll get rid of you if they get in power. Unless you think you're not one of the bourgeoisie, that's the wealthy communist, and the hairs on the back of your head will never be the cross kind. Bear in mind that every purge of the bourgeoisie in history, as the wealthy communists, has also included loyal comrades suspected of individual thought and ethnic minorities, and many of the proletariat, that's the peasants who had little or no land in Russia, just because they had some extra bullets. History is littered with those who wished for liberty and those who took it. When they come, they'll say, trust us. It's time to be different. But a ruse by any other name would smell just the same. In a free society, we have to fight inequality. In a society where everyone is forced to be equal, we have to fight to be free. Now, which will it be? Are you going to sit around and do nothing while the communists take over the country? Or are you going to do something? The number one thing you can get out and do is try to persuade people to vote for President Trump. Don't be afraid to open your mouth and say something, because somebody from Black Lives Matter might whack you over the head with a bat. You got to get out and do something. You better get out and do something. Your freedom is going to be taken away. Now here's a couple notes in addition to this poem, this political poem that was put out by a website called journalpoems.com. That's www.journalpoems.com. Go there and watch a fellow repeat what I just said in a much better way. Here's my note, editor note. To Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, BLM, AOC, and Antifa, white people have white privilege, because that's the right or immunity granted as a particular benefit, advantage, or favor. We are just privileged peasants to these people. If these radical communist groups get into power, there will be a purge of privileged peasants. That would be us, white people, just like the Kulaks, who have been labeled through identity politics as having white privilege. Crimes of the modern day Kulak are white people. And if you don't think they're going to come for you, if Joe Biden gets in there, you're just fooling yourself. Because the forces of evil now control the Democratic Party, they will do anything to elect Joe Biden and the other people in the party, which might as well be the Communist Party now. This means there will be millions of fake ballots cast in the November 2020 election. This has been forecasted by Joe Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, and many other Democrats in Congress. They have predicted that Trump will not concede the election, because they know that they're going to be millions of fake ballots, and the election will possibly be a big fraud. So they're predicting what they're going to do ahead of time. Their plan is to steal, through voter fraud, the 2020 election. Now, that's what we have to prevent. All Americans must fight this cancer called the Democratic Party. It's not democratic, it's a Communist Party. We must fight to continue to be free. That means just don't sit around and do nothing. Just don't join Black Lives Matter like Debo Sweeney did and said he wholeheartedly supports them, and he never read the fine print about who they really are. Don't be like that. You're making a big mistake thinking you're joining in an organization to protest injustice, when actually you're joining an organization, a communist organization that wants to overthrow the United States of America. We must fight to continue to be free. This means doing everything we can to elect President Trump and other Republicans, even Rhino Republicans. The alternative is the election of Joe Biden and other Democrats who will come for us. If the Democrats come for us, the white privileged peasants, many will defend themselves with force. Many will just allow themselves to be taken away to the Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, BLM, AOC, and Antifa gulags in America. These new gulags or prisons will be in America. They really will. The Gulag or Gulag was a government agency in charge of the Soviet network of forced labor camps set up by the order of Vladimir Lenin, reaching its peak during Joseph Stalin's rule from the 1930s to the early 1950s. The number one thing you don't want to be is a useful idiot and support Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, BLM, AOC, and Antifa, like that coach in Clemson did. Useful idiot. Don't be a useful idiot. Don't be duped into thinking you are just joining a protest group that just supports black people, because that's not what you're doing. Read the fine print about Black Lives Matter, radical communist group of deceivers. Don't be like Dabo Sweetie and not read the fine print. Read the fine print. Find out what you're getting into. He actually Dabo Sweetie told his students to do that, and he didn't do what he told his students to do. Don't be a useful idiot like that. This is my first episode, and so it's going to be not that polished, okay? But you need to go to my blog. It's called storyreportscomments.blogspot.com and watch some videos that I put up there, including the one that I'm recommending about the political poetry I just read, which is excellent. And I've got many comments on my blog. This is something new for me, doing this videos blogging, so I'm enjoying it, and I hope it goes well. Also, go to streamzones.com. You can install a free Roku channel there. Also, visit anycalculator.com, and you can also get some free calculators, online calculators there, especially students during this time when they're having to stay inside, hiding from the coronavirus because the government tells them that's the thing to do, but actually when they're staying inside, cooped up with their family, that's where most people get the coronavirus, when they're cooped up with their family. You'd be better off going outside and not staying so cooped up with your family, because and like in New York, they did a study, and 60% or 65% of the people that went to the ICUs in New York came from families. They didn't come from nursing homes. They came from families, and that's because if you stay cooped up with your family, you're more likely to get it or bring it home to your family. So keep that in mind. You need to go out, get out in the sunshine, do something. You need to get out and promote President Trump and get him reelected. Don't sit on your duff, because I'm telling you, the communists aren't. They're marching all over the country, trying to start a revolution, trying to take our freedoms away. Please do something before it's too late. This has been episode 1 of the Armchair Commentator, and I'll be seeing you.